to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, we'll move to the next item, roll call.
Mayor Steve King,
Present.
Councilmembers Richard Orphan,
Here.
Rich Gordoff,
Here.
Chris McClish,
Here.
and Tim Brown.
Here.
Okay, next, I will entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So.
Mr. Brown makes a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McClish. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting tonight's agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. I'll now entertain a motion to accept tonight's consent agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, oops.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of tonight's consent agenda signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anna, is there anybody from the public who would like to speak?
Yes, first up is Andy Schrader.
Okay, Andy. You need to give your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes or so.
My name is Andy Schrader. I'm the St. Francis building official. My address is 32134 111th and a half Street in Princeton, Minnesota. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to address you this evening. I want to briefly address item number 8 on your agenda, which is under report from the city attorney. I did request that this meeting be open to the public since it does concern me. Last week, I was given notice that a closed session was scheduled for this evening to discuss allegations or charges against me. I would like to start by informing you that I'm unaware of any allegations or charges received or reported by the city of St. Francis. I've asked numerous times for specifics of any concerns, but received none. I would like to briefly recap the situation so you have an understanding of how we got to where we are. On May 31st, I was informed by Mr. Coleman that Mayor Steve Kane wanted to meet with me to discuss allegations of unprofessional conduct. As I was unaware of any problems or issues, I asked Mr. Coleman to elaborate or specify what this was in reference to. He stated that he would let the mayor alone address the issue. The date and time came for this meeting, but Mayor Kane did not appear. Mr. Laybeck, the city attorney, however, was seated at the table. Mr. Laybeck produced what is called a performance improvement plan and informed me I had until noon the next business day to sign this form. I had never heard of this term or process and asked him to explain. Mr. Laybeck said, just read the plan and return it to Mr. Coleman after you sign it. After glancing at the document, I asked why the steps outlined in the personnel policy were not followed. Mr. Laybeck repeated, let's just stick to the plan. I asked again for specifics of what led up to this issue. Mr. Laybeck repeated, let's just stick to the plan. The next day, I sent an email to Mr. Coleman asking for an extension to the deadline so I could consult with an employment attorney, to which he agreed. On that day, I had an appointment with attorney Greg Corwin to discuss the situation. After reviewing the PIP and the St. Francis personnel policy, he asked if there was any verbal or written disciplinary action which led up to this, which there was not. Mr. Corwin called Mr. Laybeck and they had a conversation. City Attorney Laybeck was informed that the form would not be signed as it was without merit and the city had produced no examples or instances of this alleged unprofessional conduct. Mr. Laybeck replied that if I did not sign the form, it would be recommended to the city council that I be terminated. To date, I am unaware of any credible specific instance where I have not professionally represented the city. As a professional, a husband, and a father, I take my job very seriously. This is how I provide for my family. The actions of your administrator and city attorney are not appreciated, and you as an employer should be concerned. When an employee of the city can be targeted in such a manner with no allegations or specifics required, and be threatened with termination, it is going to be very challenging to recruit and maintain quality employees. After witnessing the events of the last few weeks, current employees will be wondering if St. Francis is a place where they want to gamble on their employment future. In conclusion, I can't help but wonder if you should be considering actions against someone other than me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, is there anyone else?
Joseph Miller.
Okay. Please give your name and address and you'll have 3 minutes also.
Joseph Morrell, 24360 Yukon Street. I actually came up to address a Pedersen Drive improvement. I believe that you're going to have a issue with the traffic jam because the curb went in. I think you need to reconsider before park construction leaves town. widening that lane, because I believe that you're gonna have an issue where it's gonna back up. There's people that are trying to take about up 47. There's another issue, some pertaining to the wastewater treatment plant that we've already pretty much beat the dead horse about. I want to know why we didn't go to the Met Council, even though we stated that we did. What about the water runoff fee for $60? And is there going to be a plan implemented in place next year when the funds are provided by the Rum River, I believe it's the Rum River Authority, or they're supplying finances for some of that funding? And that's what I'll add. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? All right. Moving on to petitions, requests, and applications. St. Francis Ambassador Program Quote Agreement and Resolution 2016-25.
Mr. Mayor, Council, if I could address this issue because the actual agreement and action in your council packet was not accurate. That was prepared based on the premise that at some point the quote actually had been transferred over to the ambassadors. That is not accurate. In fact, it has always remained the city's property. By way of background on this, the ambassadors program is a float for its summer events. It's a fairly well-traveled float, and over the course of time has had its normal wear and tear. The ambassadors program in the city have always had discussions back and forth as to who should maintain, store, and insure it. Ultimately, I think we've reached agreement on all of those issues, and the last that we had left it was the ambassadors program was going to see if they can get their own insurance on it. They've not been able to do that. So what we've got before you tonight is the agreement between the city and the ambassadors program in which the city would retain the owners of it so that it could be insured. The other maintenance costs, storage would be borne by the ambassadors program, with the exception that the city's previously donated dollar amounts will continue for the next couple of years. So with that, you've got resolution 2016-25, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, have you any questions?
Does
Yes.
it cost anything to insure it, or do they pay that cost?
Councilmember, that is an excellent question. It's going to be covered under the city's general fleet policy, so it's not going to cost the city anymore. It's just going to be one of the items that's going to be listed on our coverage.
That's like a free thing for the ambassadors and the insurance on that?
That is correct. And they could not get their own, floats are tough to insure.
What do other cities do?
I don't know what the answer is to that question.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-25, a resolution acknowledging the acceptance and transfer of the St. Francis Ambassador Program parade float trailer and authorizing execution of an ownership and maintenance agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt resolution 2016-25.
Okay, I have a motion to adopt by Mr. Sporno. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 2016-25 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is passed. Next is the Tamarack Street, Emmerich and Wallace Minor Subdivision, resolution 2016-26. Nate, did you want to give any background on that?
Mr. Mayor, I would be happy. We have a request. It's property owned by the Johnson family. Bruce Emmerich and Nancy Wallace want to purchase each half of it, and it's located north of 229 on the west side of Tamarack Street, 2300 block address. It's about a 39-acre parcel. They just want to split it in half. They're choosing to do so by minor subdivision, which means it's not platted. It meets the criteria provided. They provide easements, as you can see on the survey they provided all the legal descriptions for the easements, the building official approved the septic and soil borings for the site. Wetland delineation is being reviewed by the city engineer's office. And all we really need to do is meet just a couple of conditions that the planning commission recommended related to recording and then the recording of the easements as well, and that the park dedication fee is paid. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be honored to answer them. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Mr. Sparks? Okay, hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-26, a resolution approving a minor subdivision for Bruce Emmerich and Nancy Wallace to subdivide a 39-acre parcel on Tamarack Street.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Brown makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McFlesh. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of resolution 2016-26 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, moving on to the Crown Second Edition Preliminary and Final Plat, Resolution 2016-27. Mr. Sparks.
Mr. Mayor, we have a property located north of the liquor store, the city's liquor store. It's owned by the city. It's an outlot currently with a storm pond on it. There's a buildable area of this lot which is being proposed to be platted so the city can market and actually sell the property to a commercial user. It's owned for commercial use. There's no plan of development at this time. The planning commission reviewed this and recommended approval. On the preliminary plat that's presented to you, we have a demonstration of commercial use that's shown that can fit on the property with the requisite amount of parking while also preserving the driveway that the city has from the liquor store to the highway. That area will need to be placed under an easement and recorded, and we do have a legal description of that. So the planning commission recommended approval with that condition. If there's any questions, I can answer. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, is there any questions, Mr. Sparks? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-27, a resolution approving a preliminary and final plat for Crown Second Edition. Mr. Brown makes a motion. Do I have a second?
One second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the table to approve resolution 2016-27. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Mr. Brown.
Just so everyone remembers, they probably don't, we acquired this land several years ago, and when 47 got renovated, the state paid us for easement on this land, so basically they gave us what we paid for land, so this is a totally free piece of land that we got.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of passing resolution 2016-27, a resolution approving a preliminary and final plat for Crown Second Edition, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Before I move on to the East Village, Mr. Coleman, can you make arrangements with Mr. Morrell to get together and answer his questions at some point? All right, then we'll move on to the East Village Comprehensive Plan Amendment, rezoning, preliminary and final plat right-of-way vacation. Mr. Sparks.
Mr. Mayor, we have here the former, as it was colloquially known, East Shop site. It was a property that the city used for public works purposes next to the Casey's property near the county parkland on the river. It is currently 6 different parcels of land, and the city has talked in the years past about putting one use on this property. In order to allow that to happen, we need to do something to combine the properties to make it one developable site. To do that is a rather complicated procedure just because of the fact that it bears multiple designations in the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance, as well as in the past, there were portions of this property that were discussed as being right of way. So that's why you have a bundle of different resolutions and ordinances here for your consideration. But the
content of it is that these properties are being combined into one site with one comp plan designation of commercial and one zoning designation as B2 general commercial. That's the gist of it. We showed a conceptual building on the site. This was shown to the county. They've asked that we move the access point, and we're still in discussions with them about the right of way. When we get that resolved, we will update the site plan so the city can show that to people who are interested in the property. But that is pretty much the content of it. We are also talking to Casey's about possibly sharing the access point in the future, but those access point issues are more for the future owner of the property, less so for the city at this time, but we will figure it out. If there's any questions, I'll like to answer them for you, otherwise I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Council, is there any questions for Mr. Sparks? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-28, approving a comprehensive plan amendment to a commercial land use with property associated with the East Village addition.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. McClish makes a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Orpin seconds. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of resolution 2016-28 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have ordinance 220, second series, an ordinance amending the official city of St. Francis zoning map to rezone property at 3518 Bridge Street associated with the East Village final plat to B2 general commercial. I will entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Brown makes a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Urban. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. Mr. Urban?
Aye.
Mr. Scordo?
Aye.
Mr. McClish?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. Motion passes. We move on to resolution 2016-29, approving a preliminary and final plat for the East Village addition. This time I'll entertain a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. McClish. I'll make that motion to approve.
Mr. McClish makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'd like a second.
Okay, Mr. Scordo makes a second. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing resolution 2016-29 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2016-30, approving easement vacations related to the East Village final plat. This time I'll entertain the motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Orban makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Brown. Is there any discussion before I call for the question?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just want to thank staff for putting in the legwork to get these two parcels to the point where we can get them on the market and get some use out of them. Good job.
Agreed. Mr. Brown?
And this land was also donated to the city by the county originally.
All right, Mr. Sparks?
We need to open a public hearing for this item. It's a easement vacation of public.
Oh, okay. Well, before we do anything, let's open the public hearing. If anybody's here to speak about that, it's 6:19. Anyone here to speak on this subject? Hearing no one here to speak, we will close the public hearing and continue with our vote. Okay, is there any further discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing resolution 2016-30 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we move on to resolution 2016-31, the appointment of election judges for both the primary and the general election. This time, is there any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-31.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Mr. Brown makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Sportall. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing resolution 2016-31 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Resolution 2016-32, supporting Anoka County federal funding application for the Trunk Highway 47 Pedersen Trail and Tunnel crossing. Mr. Tyson, would you like to?
Mayor, Council, county's been seeking federal funds for the 2019 to 2021 funding cycle. So they're looking for a letter of, or a resolution of support from the council for them to seek some funding so they can put a tunnel under 47 to make it a little bit safer for pedestrians and bike travel. Kind of the background right now, it's very preliminary, but they do need to put in this application so they can get on that funding cycle. It's pretty advanced right now. Preliminary plans that they're in concept ideas. The one concept idea that you have in your packet is the one that they landed on after 4 or 5 different drawings. I'll answer your questions.
I'll also add in discussions with Commissioner Look, they've already done the boring samples, so they know they can build a tunnel deep enough because the water table is low. So they've already done all the preliminary work that's ready to go. It's quote unquote shovel ready. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Just a quick question here. My understanding is that the tunnel option is a lot cheaper than a bridge. Is that correct?
Yes, through their studies, they determined that the bridge is a much higher cost based on ramps and ADA requirements and things like that. So it ends up being a lot more expensive.
Because a bridge takes up a lot more space. And also, I believe we're going to have some lighting underneath that tunnel for safety.
Yeah, there would be lighting in the tunnel.
And again, that intersection has been a huge issue for years, and since I've been on the council, we've been addressing this, and the state, the only thing that they've done so far is that pedestrian light. So we've tried stoplights, pedestrian bridge and tunnel, so I'm kind of happy to see this come in front of the council.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, we did put lights in there and warnings and all that, now we're gonna get a tunnel. I'm a little concerned about the safety. I don't know if I would want my little kids running through a tunnel in this day and age. Out of sight of everybody. And is this gonna be our final thing we're gonna do, or are we gonna put a bridge in it 2 years from now? We gotta stop throwing money at it and fix it. That's one of my only concern.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, questions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. McClish makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Orphan. Is there any further discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing resolution 2016-32 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, reports of consultants and staff members. Our engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the last meeting, June 20th meeting, the speed limit of 235th was discussed. And subsequent to that meeting, some analysis was done regarding driveway spacings along that corridor. The corridor that we're referring to is found on the west by Rum River Boulevard and on the east by Arrowhead Street. All of you are familiar with that area, but you may recall that in a couple of those areas, there are areas where there's driveways that are significantly spaced apart. Minnesota statute allows for a classification of an area as urban based on driveway and intersection spacing not exceeding 100 feet. So there is a portion in that corridor that has driveways with less than spacings of less than 100 feet. I believe that's been included in your packet this evening. However, there are some areas that don't. Based on the analysis, it appears as though that segment meets the definition of the statute, with the exception of those two areas. However, based on analysis relative to sign placement, enforceability, and driver experience, it wouldn't make sense to have an urban area, which is 30 miles per hour, go to 35 and then back down to 30 in those areas where it meets it. So statute does provide for the opportunity for council to pass a resolution declaring that an urban area, indicating that an access analysis has been completed, and then that resolution, if so approved by council, can be forwarded to the Commissioner of Transportation. And that needs to be done 10 days prior to erecting the signs. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you council might have.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Bode? If hearing none, I will entertain the motion for resolution 2016-33, establishing a speed limit on 235th Avenue Northwest between Rum River Boulevard and Arrowhead Street Northwest in the city of St. Francis.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Mr. Orper makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. McClitch. Is there any further discussion before I call for the question?
Yes.
Yes, Mr.
I know the residents that live along that street are going to really appreciate this. And we've been talking about this like the last 5 years.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor of passing resolution 2016-33 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This portion of the meeting is being requested as an open meeting by the building official under the Data Practices Act. Open meeting laws, private data at this point can be discussed if it relates to a matter within the scope of the council's authority as reasonably necessary to conduct business before the council. So that's basically our disclaimer before you start. Anything you feel need to discuss at this point, you can, as long as it's related to the agenda topic. Matter before the council this evening is the building official's refusal to sign or participate in the performance improvement plan that was given to him. The genesis of this action was that some concerns related to the building official's performance in terms of treatment of staff, treatment of customers / citizens, knowing his whereabouts, and participation in a development of rules plan for the department had been raised with the city administrator. City administrator and I had a discussion on the best way to approach this, and it was determined that the lowest level of performance approaches was not to take disciplinary action route, but rather to see if we could get corrective action just through discussion and placement on a formal plan. That's what happened. The city administrator and I sat down with the building official, presented him with the formal document, outlined 4 areas that he needed to work on. The game plan at that point was to have this go into place and have follow-up meetings where detail on these matters could be addressed. It was a relatively short period of time, and the anticipated action plan was to meet with the administrator, meet with the building official, put this into place, get it corrected, and move on without discipline ever arising. And obviously from the communication to the council, that did not occur. Given the response to the building official, the matter was then paused. It's now before the council for direction. As I indicated, the original plan was to have a performance improvement plan go into place with regular meetings where the detail on this could be discussed. Question for the council to consider is, are we at a spot now where this performance action plan really becomes moot, given what appears to be a significant strain in relations amongst various levels here? So with that, I turn it over to council for discussion and direction.
Comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Given the history of our personal improvement plans in the city, that's pretty much a way out, that's pretty much out the door because they're almost impossible to achieve success. We've had them in the past, and I don't know anybody that survived any of them. So that's what I think about the PIP plans.
My personal experience is that I've used them throughout my career, rather than a disciplinary action. My last one was about 4 years ago with one of my employees who's still working today, one of the better employees today. It's just simply a way of sitting down and saying, listen, we're seeing some problems here, let's work together, let's work this stuff out, let's move on, let's keep going. That's my 2 cents.
After reading the lengthy PIP, my concern was how many of these issues were addressed in real time as opposed to letting the build come to a head where somebody felt the need for a performance improvement plan. Is there any documentation of any of these being addressed?
That's an excellent question. The building officials, right, at the performance improvement plan delivery meeting, there was not a lot of detail discussed. Sort of the general pattern of dealing with the building official is any issues that are raised about his performance generate an extended period of argument and a little consensus developed. So just given the argument of history that has been experienced with the building official, the plan was to deliver it, put it in writing, give him some time to consider it, and then come back as the plan went into place, that detail could be discussed. Now, obviously, as some issues arose, those were addressed with the building official at the time. But the full extent of all 4 items was not fully discussed or explored at that PIP meeting.
Okay, I guess what I'm concerned about, like, throughout some of these issues that are date back almost like 6-7 months, especially time off type issues. Were those addressed, or has it just been like, because it seems like if he does not told one way or another, it has to assume it's okay. And if he doesn't even aware of the issues that are being addressed today, then I don't know how he can improve without this performance improvement plan that seems really, I don't know, it seemed so encompassing. It seemed like you might as well send him back to remedial training. I mean, are any of those issues addressed, like especially the time off ones?
Let me address the time off ones. Some of the examples given do go back quite a way. And obviously St. Francis staff not being big, staff tending not to run under very strict protocol. One time, it's not that big of a deal. 2, still probably not that big of a deal. But when you get to areas 3 and 4, all of a sudden you've identified a pattern. So once you get the multiple instances, given the history, that's what raises the issue. It's not ever going to get rid of it. It's 1, maybe 2 times.
Right, I guess I'm just still wondering if after 2-3 times was it brought to his attention, hey, this is a problem. Whether or not you're doing something wrong, it's perceived you're doing something wrong, we need to address it now so that doesn't happen again. I don't see, and if there's documentation of that, it would be awesome to see that.
The intent was to have this become the documentation where the sit-down meeting could occur and say, this is something we need to address.
Is there a step before this where, I know in my job, this is like, if you get this, you got 1 foot out the door. Where there's like a coaching with your immediate supervisor, work on things on a one-on-one basis, and then if they don't improve from there, then the PIP is in place. And it's kind of, you do this, meet our expectations, or else, and then these are the consequences. There's no middle ground in the city's policies, or?
Yeah, the answer to that is that the informal communications that the administrators have with the village officials just simply haven't been successful. This is a step intended to gain his attention, and just the informal means does not result in any change in action.
Yeah, I know, I'm privately employed too, like you are manufacturing. And if this were given to me, I probably have a few words I can't say here to my boss. But every time I would do something, been there for 36 years, I got a file up in the office that's just astronomically huge. Whether it's inappropriate joking around, or I yelled at somebody, I told my foreman to go take a hike several times. It's all documented, but then they got documentation. If I would continue that behavior, I wouldn't be there for 36 years, and they would have some solid documentation to pull off a piece of paper saying, Tim, you did this, you did that, you did this, see you there later. I don't see any documentation, you know, and there has to be some way of tracking this before we go to this step. I think I don't see anything in the middle. And like I said, experience I've had in the city, the PIP plans are basically, you're gone.
And I would note that current supervisory staff does not ever have a performance improvement plan in this city. So I think what's happened historically has been with a completely different supervisory team. But what we're looking for tonight is council direction.
Mr. Scordo?
I remember what my question was. If I look through one of the accusations about time management, if I were to do this in my job, I would be fired. Accurate time management is, I mean, for me, it's, you have to put your time in the right place, whether a contractor working or whatever. I don't know if it's in the personnel policy, but is there a policy somewhere that says the employee shall do something that governs, you know, accurate time charting for sick time, absence, whatever? Is there a policy that would violate that? This is my real question. And I'm kind of lining up on the same side. I don't like being here. It seems like a step was skipped. And I understand everything you said. You know, it's a two-way street, and I think both parties have gotten here together. I think that's very clear. But I don't see the person knew that they should have done this, and they did this instead, and that's wrong. Is there a shall statement some places as how you charge time in the city as an employee?
Yeah, that, I don't have the policies in front of me, but I think the regular attendance is fairly standard expectation in most personnel policies.
Okay?
Mr. Brown?
Well, I was on my little sabbatical vacation. I had nothing better to do except think about this for 3 weeks, 2 weeks. And few things came to light, you know. I've asked senior staff at an open meeting specific questions about a project or whatever, only to be ignored. And I've been asked 2 to 3 times. I saw no PIP plan for them, and I'm supposed to be the boss. I've seen the senior staff blatantly disrespect the council on 3 different occasions. Nothing happened to that person. I've heard of maintenance department going to the hardware store and blatantly saying, I don't care, it's not my money, it's city's money, for buying stuff that wasn't actually needed. But I see them not on a PIP plan. I mean, I've been around here a long time. I know where a lot of skeletons are buried. And I haven't seen any PIP plans for some of the stuff I've seen go on in the city. And to ruin a man's career, to ruin his family for something that's undocumented, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Last time we went down this road of a possible employee going away, it cost us well north of $100,000. How much can we afford to keep on doing the same stupid thing over and over and over again? I mean, I pay tax in the city too, and I'm getting tired of paying for settlements. It's ridiculous. We have to have a step plan in place for discipline. You know, maybe staff has to take care of it. If after a while, then council has to have a meeting, give us our expectations, what this employee is supposed to do. And then after that, if they don't do it, PIP after that. If it still doesn't work, down the road. But not all of a sudden like this. I haven't heard anything negative about this at all. I hear there's been phone calls about builders are complaining, but a building inspector is not a builder's best friend sometimes, especially if they're trying to get away with something. And I've had 6 phone calls from 6 different people in 16 years. So I don't know where all these complaints keep coming from. My phone must not be working very well. So I'm not in favor of this at all. Love it.
Any further comments?
Is it possible to do like a warning type of memo? I don't usually, always have warning or verbal, written suspension termination. I think that's pretty much the standard. So obviously, I was reading through this, so definitely we have some issues that need to be addressed, especially the time management, because the taxpayers are paying our employees to do their job, and we have somebody that's skipping out and not putting their vacation or sick time, and that's a huge issue to me. So, because of my job, I'd get terminated.
So direction, I'm looking for consensus. It would appear that withdrawing the performance improvement plan, just dealing with all future issues as a disciplinary matter is sort of what I'm leading from the line. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd like to see the building inspector be made aware of everything that is being brought forward to us in this document. So it's all out there, so there's no surprises. And if he doesn't think that there's going to be a timeline after this, and continue the process, then I think the performance improvement plan should be implemented almost immediately, because he knows that people are watching and the things that are expected, and whether or not they should have been known all along, but if they've been allowed to progress so far without being addressed, then I think it's kind of like starting an over point and have everything documented in his file so that there's somewhere to go from here. Like, I can't make a jump from, I've only had a good interaction with him and never heard anything bad about him, to here's this overreaching performance improvement plan. And I kind of wonder if we would even be here if it was if this was broken down in sections, so he had just one part to focus on instead of this. I mean, I can't imagine where I would have signed the first one, we worked on it, got better, and bring forward another one, and you're off. And I have a feeling if he had progressed in one area, the rest would have probably followed suit, but without documentation, I can't make that leap.
Anyone else? Mr. Scordo?
No, Councilman Wolf said everything I was about to say. I think getting this step is a really big jump. Like I said, I think it was a two-way street to get here. I understand that. But I would rather see us, like Councilman Wolf said, let's consider this ground zero. Let's move forward from here. I think we got a building official that knows his job and can do his job competently. But if we're creating situations where it's a hostile work environment, other folks can't get their job done, that's unacceptable. But I do think it seems like we almost have to have some kind of process to follow, like Councilman Walker said, where we document how we get from the first phone call that says, hey, I don't like the way I was treated by this city staff member, to an issue brought before the council. I don't know if there's a process in place. If there isn't, Joe ought to think about developing one, so we have a reason why we're sitting here, and the reason why we're going to make any decisions as a body like this. I don't think I'm ready to say yea or nay, but I do think that I think both parties need to take a deep breath and start over. And if a complaint comes in, the supervisor needs to sit down and explain the issue. And if we can't get past it, well, maybe we'll be back here, but I don't think we're ready to terminate someone based on what I've heard so far.
Mr. Legnack, I think you have direction.
I do. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the Community Economic Development request for Norfolk County HRA EDA funding, resolution 2016-30.
Mayor Council, before you in your packet, there's a resolution that is directly tied to the following redevelopment plan request. It was difficult to decide which order to place the items, so I'm requesting that you hear both items and then go back and make any appropriate motions at that time. This applies to the resolution to request HRA EDA funds and the approval to move forward with an agreement to complete a redevelopment plan. First, before you, I'm requesting through resolution 2016-34 that the city council approve and request the use of county HRA EDA funds for a redevelopment plan. Funds are available and this plan is an eligible expense. I have outlined in the agenda report the city is a participating member of the county HRA EDA and there are currently funds available. The city has utilized these funds for other planning and project needs in the past, and if approved tonight, it would move forward to the Anoka County Housing and Redevelopment Authority board meeting on July 26th. How these funds would be used is my next item. Before you in your packet, I have a proposal to enter into an agreement with the Housington Kohler Group for a master redevelopment plan. Let me briefly walk through the objectives and goals of that plan. Master plans are created to guide development. A plan such as this can be the goal to create a vibrant community with a mix of residential, commercial, retail, and industrial, as a good plan shapes good decisions. One example of successful planning would be the city of Osceola's downtown. This plan was a long-range goal. They awarded consistent efforts and development measures throughout the plan itself. Another one you might be familiar with is the Coon Rapids Boulevard corridor. This was a plan that continues to lead the way in the Coon Rapids Boulevard, which has new senior housing, a brand new community center, and an expansion at Mercy Hospital to be a medical campus. This has also guided the removal of quite a bit of substantial and vacant retail buildings. The goals of the planning include engaging the community. There's a lot about that in the scope of work you'll see. Build on past plans and efforts, prepare and organize for the future, and create a tool that offers an organized inventory of the parcels, both public and private. Within the scope of work, there are specifics targeted to the public engagement. This will create a plan that the residents and stakeholders will assist in developing and actually have input and part of the vision development with. As the ownership interest, the consultant will also lead the meetings to ensure they're productive, on task, and we can move forward in a very positive way. In May, we walked through the economic development plan. It highlighted community features and needs along with the use and support of the creation of a master plan. The plans include the river crossing, senior housing, the Bridge Street connection. We can take all of those plans and incorporate it into this master plan. And we're not just walking away from what we've done, but we're incorporating it all and giving it life and strength in those two corridors specifically. The scope of work is broken down into 5 separate tasks within this. Each task has its own objectives, measurables, and identified meeting schedules. Task 1 is really about getting organized, the details, and the plan strategies. Task 2 really focuses on the information and status to include the community input. This will take a look at our community constraints with interviews with stakeholders, creating a vision, and then there's also the public health component starts to kick in this section. Task 3 develops a series of multi-level concepts for the corridors. It reviews things like the opportunities, the land use, public space, transportation, and then also includes the private sector investments along with the public sector investments that we have. Task 4 starts to pull it all together. While evaluation of the alternatives, they will outline priority objectives, preferred concepts, and start to pull them back through in the various elected official meetings, the EDA or the planning commission. And task 5 is really to come back and get it approved. The final steps to wrap up, to take all that information, post the presentations to the commissioners, to the councils, and to the public themselves. In the scope of work, it's anticipated that this will take 6 to 8 months to complete. At that point, we will have a strong planning tool, yet also have a document to help support the comprehensive plan as we move forward with that. Again, that can link then to our next 2040 plan. Once this plan is finalized and approved, it actually belongs to the city. Staff will have a tool to use for marketing, guiding the development, measuring our redevelopment, and residents will have ownership and be able to understand why we're choosing a path or how we got to that path that is moving forward with changes. Gaps were identified in the past plans, and master planning has a proven process to move forward. As our housing inventory grows, we've had 19 new construction permits this spring already. So as our housing inventory goes up, we need to also meet the needs and desires of our residents, but we have to do it in a sustainable, thought-out development process. So before we do our 2 items, the resolution to request the county funds for the completion of the plan and the request for approval to enter into the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
My vision of what we've got, the plan that we've got is more of a macro plan, and this would be a micro plan.
Correct.
So this would get us down closer into the service. Any questions? Mr. Brown?
How much is the city's cost for this?
We would be requesting the HRA EDA funds from Anoka County to cover the full 92,000.
So there would be no cost to the city.
There wouldn't be any funds coming out of the general fund, correct?
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2016-34, requesting funds from the Anoka County HRA EDA for the completion of the redevelopment plan.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2016-34.
Mr. Squirtle makes a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McClush. Is there any further discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting resolution 2016-34 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Now the approval for the redevelopment. We need to make a, we need to pass a motion on that?
Yep.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion for the approval for the redevelopment.
Make that motion to approve.
Mr. Brown makes a motion to approve, do I have a second?
It would be entering into the agreement in place.
Okay. Entering into the agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Orban. Is there any discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of entering into this redevelopment plan signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. City Administrator, you're not.
Mayor, members of the council, we have a proposal in front of you to appoint Sergeant Schweiger as acting police chief while Jay Braylon is on temporary leave of absence. And so with that acting police chief appointment, we would adjust his pay grade to 19, step 4.
Okay. Discussion, questions? Motions?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Mr. Brown makes a motion to approve. Do I have a motion to second? Second. I have a second by Mr. McClush. Any further discussion before I call for the question? Hearing none. All those in favor of the appointment of acting police chief Todd Schweiger, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Okay, reports from the council members. Mr. Brown.
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Squirtle.
The only thing I would mention is I just remind citizens to be patient with the road construction. And finally get from Casey's to Super America. We're taking a step in the right direction. Please be patient, it'll be over someday.
Mr. McClush.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Orban.
I just want to thank city staff for working hard on that 230 disc. That was probably the fastest turnaround I've seen in my 18, 19 months on the council, so I appreciate it. And actually, the construction is kind of the most active construction site I've ever seen. The trucks moving everywhere. It's kind of neat to see when you drive by. Other than that, it's kind of a headache, but yeah.
Okay, report from the mayor. Once again, I just want to bring up Kiana, our Olympian from St. Francis. Again, she's traveling on her own dime. The U.S. Olympic Committee does not fund these athletes. So for the last 3 years during training, she's had to support herself, or her family's had to support her. The trip to Rio, they have to pay for, they have to pay for lodging, they have to pay for everything. We have nothing to pay for. So again, the website for raising money is gofundme.com/EIDE Family Olympics. Please go and give. Can we put that on the front page of the website, the city website? Put the story out there with that link. Could we do that tomorrow? Time is running short, and that's why I'm concerned. So whatever you can contribute, please do. Please help these folks. They're nice folks. You know, they own the Hong Kong Lake here. And it'd be nice to see an Olympian if she wins, especially in our town. So that's all from me. Any old business?
This is just for city staff here. I don't know, do we have any updates at all about the wastewater treatment grant updates at all? I know the city sent a letter to the governor and the state representatives. I'm just curious to see if there's any updates.
Basically, where it sits right now is with the Water Infrastructure Fund is not funded. And they need a second session to do that. Now, we sent letters to both House Speaker Kurt Dow. I have called him personally, and I'm expecting a phone call back from him. Next Monday morning at 10 a.m., Mr. Coleman and I have a meeting with the governor's aides. We couldn't get directly with the governor, so we've got his aides to present our case for them to get this done. Okay. So right now, that's where we're sitting.
I just wanted the public to hear that so they know.
We're trying. We are trying very hard to get them to move. You know, it wouldn't hurt if you send letters or emails to the governor and to the House Speaker and ask them, please, to move this along. Please, get people to do that. Any other old business? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Going back to something we discussed earlier, I do like to see staff sitting at the table over there, but I'm just curious, I don't see any building official. I'd like to know why and whose decision that was. Not to have our building official sitting at that table over there.
Councilmember Brown, the building official he works under the community development director. It's not an official by ordinance department per city code.
So, okay, I disagree with it, but okay.
Any other old business? Any new business? Yes, Mr. Bush.
I just want to bring up the traffic concern at Highway 47, 233rd Avenue, right by the city liquor store. Of course, on the other side, we have the northern part of the county market development. We have a daycare, but I've received some calls about some traffic concerns that people are having a hard time crossing the highway. And I know our police department's responded to a few accidents. I think of at least 2. I don't know if there's any other ones, but. So I just want to bring to the council's attention here that we do have some traffic concerns at that intersection as well. I know we've talked to the state several times trying to get a stoplight somewhere at Ederson Drive or at 233rd. By having a stoplight there, it actually, break traffic for a little bit, so other people down the road can actually safely cross. So I just wanted to bring that up. And also, I thought the state was supposed to have a school zone in front of the elementary school at 47. I know that was discussed a while ago. I haven't seen anything yet, so I just wanted to see if there's any updates on that as well.
Yes, sure.
Mayor, Council, relative to the school speed zone study, or the school speed zone, that has been approved by MnDOT. And I believe it was, I think you're right, 6 months ago, we received that letter that said they were going to be implementing that school speed zone. I did have a conversation with the acting North area engineer today, and he was going to speak to the traffic department and give me an update, but he did not get back to me with the schedule prior to the meeting tonight. So as soon as I have that, I'll get it to Administrator Coleman, and we'll get that coffee from him to you guys.
Okay,
I don't know if there's anything we can do about the intersection of 47 and 233rd. I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but I've seen it myself, and it's pretty difficult to cross, especially during rush hour traffic and during the summertime, everybody's coming back home from up north, going up north. Then we've got the kids crossing at the intersection as well. Because kids aren't gonna walk all the way down Hudson Drive, cross and come all the way back, so.
no, I agree, and another bad intersection is the Vassar 47. That's another problem.
So I don't know, maybe if we can communicate with the state to let them know our concerns. So before, I'd rather act now until something happens really bad, so.
Well, we've had some pretty bad accidents in the quarter. So, and especially now, all the extra traffic. It's even tougher. Anything else? Hearing no more new business, we stand adjourned. Thank you.